Thank you for this wonderful introduction. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Brandon Chandler, who is one of the most gifted artists and one of the most gifted thinkers. I've only known him for just over a year when he took over our never-ending production of Tales of an Urban Indian as a solo actor. But it feels like we've fit in 30 years or more of excitement. It feels like we've discussed everything and changed everything. We just have to now commit to it and do it. Behind me, you see some photos on a banner, and it's not because I wanted to show our beautiful shows. It's because this is the only way to block my colleagues from going to the washroom without making a guest appearance. So talk about making a virtue out of necessity. When the pandemic started, I sort of looked at it and I said, you know, I have to, as a curator, as a producer, find a way of looking at it not as a challenge, but as an opportunity. I'm welcoming problems. All we do in the art is fix problems, make solutions. But at the same time, I can be defined by the problems. I want to figure out a way of using them to my advantage. And in doing so is imagine all sorts of what ifs about all the aspects of our life, how we create art, how we administer art, how we talk to our audience, how we talk to the artist, everything and everything. Because contrary to the quote that opened this conference, while we have to accomplish things right away, I think the challenge with the pandemic is that we can't predict tomorrow, but we can predict 3 years from now. And I was determined to look at this time to fix, to relook, to challenge, change a number of assumptions that we sort of fell into just because that's I was born in Moscow, Russia, and I basically spent my entire childhood backstage over repertory theater, traditional repertory theater, which really means that everyone, all of the artists, and there were 120 actors on salaries going on an ongoing basis, and there were orchestras on salary, and they didn't do any musicals, just for incidental music to change scenery. I remember that background. And this is sort of what I grew up believing in. I grew up in believing that art is not a transaction. What was absolutely redeeming about COVID pandemic is that we cannot commit any transactions. We cannot congregate. So there are no transactions to be had. But we can look at it as an aesthetic program. And also what a repertory tradition had taught me is that when we curate, it's not like we curate programming and then there is a support system for the artists. The support system for the artist is at the very center of curation, to me anyway. It's profoundly important to me when we program work to figure out who is going to be performing it or who is it for, because if it doesn't challenge the artist, it doesn't actually challenge anybody else as a result. And so, because I couldn't offer any normal sort of let's produce a play, and because I looked at how quickly the artists were taking off contracts. You know, the first month of various panels that we were on is how to terminate artist contracts through the union, and then afterwards you sort of think, oh my goodness, we just got rid of the very center of what this is all about. What if we had a support system for the artists that allowed artists to be artists, that conditioned them to prove the point of view and not the value? Because, you know, when they have to earn a contract every time, an audition only to work somewhere, and callbacks only to get a 6-week contract at a theater somewhere, they're really conditioned to prove the value and not the point of view. In the repertory system, in the European which I grew up in, there's no actor that ever will say that they've played all the parts that they wanted to play, but at the very least, they have a vacation of a month. They have an annual salary, regardless of how many performances they're in. So I was determined to imagine, what if in Canada, there is actually a support system for the artists. And the one thing that I came up with is an artist big program, which is big stands for basic income guarantee. And we're going through a selection process right now. The idea is that our board of directors had committed to 3 years of expenditure. So actually in the middle of pandemic, I had to persuade our board to commit to an artistic salary budget for 3 years. And that was successful unanimously. We will put, we said 20, I think it will go to 30. 30 artists, we will offer them a financial guarantee per year over the next 3 years. So the system, the what if that I imagine, is not a repertory theater because it has as many drawbacks as it has benefits, not a traditional open-ended format, but a hybrid of both that takes the best of both systems, but leaves sort of the disadvantages behind. And the idea is that every artist in a program will get a financial guarantee between on average, $10,000 a year. And then I will meet with them when it's time to program a season and figure out what kind of work would they want to be challenged by, to be involved in, both in terms of their artistic ambition and system of values and their lifestyle needs. Are they expecting, do they want to have a child at 42 finally? And that kind of stuff. So maybe they'll write a play instead. What if the artists were actually in a key, part of my sort of hidden reason for that is to bring artists to the decision, to the position of being able to make decisions. And not just, theater is a dictatorship. I'll still be making the final call on what gets produced, but that will be more inclusive sort of workplace where what they get to do is a dialogue and is a continuum of an aesthetic, not a transactional one stop at a time. What is also more important for me in handing over to Brendan is that I believe artists should be in a greater decision-making authority. I find that artists who make artistic decisions, like directors and designers, should be serving on corporate boards, not the other way, or as well as the other way around, but definitely in that way. I also think they should be charting policies, government policies, including all of our funding. No offense to funders, but it's been done by arts councils, and then the artists have to figure out how to fit into their system. What if the artists actually develop the program? And in that regard, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, who not only do I make perform the show on the bus, but I also made him develop one of our funding programs. So Brendan, take it away.
Hello, I'm Brendan Chandler. I'm an artist, an actor, and a creator. I'm from Grand Prairie, Alberta, where we recently performed Tales of an Urban Indian in October, which was very successful in the pandemic. So I've been working with Arkady for almost a year now, a little over a year, and it's been one of the greatest experiences of my career. And Arkady is someone that I highly, highly admire and want to emulate in my own profession. We worked on this grant that we created with 3 other artists, including myself, called Resistance and Change. And the grant was proposed to me when Black Lives Matter and a lot of protests were happening everywhere. And one of the things that I always get very upset about when something happens like that is where everyone acknowledges it in the moment, and then as soon as it passes on, it's forgotten about. And it's something that I always get frustrated with when something like that happens, because I'm a big believer in progress and I'm a big believer in results. And when they're not being made, I get very doubtful. And so then I got an amazing phone call from Arkady, and he said, "What do you want to do about this?" And he created an idea where we basically make artists accountable for creating change in social injustice. And so we created it, working almost, how long, since June, and just really, really breaking down the idea of what it's like to actually make change wherever the change needs to happen. And we got 15 grants made out of it. So the entire thing was to make artists really look inside themselves and say, how are we going to start the change? And seeds, the best thing about making change is that you have to plant a seed before it turns into a garden. And seeing us really discuss what it means to have change makes you almost look at yourself like, how am I going to change something that has been going on for generations? Well, let's just start with one person. Okay, then that one person will talk to that person. Then it turns to 10, then it turns to 15. And that's how progress works. And that's something I'm really, really proud of to work with Arkady, that I got to be a part of that change. And I cried when we decided who got the money, and it was $5,000 this year, but I can see it progressing every year. And just knowing that whoever gets those letters, it's not about glorifying themselves. It's about actually looking and seeing, hopefully in 10 years, that one person made an entire effect on maybe 100, maybe 200, maybe an entire community, maybe a province. So yeah, it was a really great experience, and I can't wait to keep continuing with it, because I love knowing that I get to help people, because I think that's actually why I'm an artist. Like, I don't do it to make people look at me. And I mean, it started out that way, but now I do it because I like seeing hope in people's eyes. Yeah.
And if I can just tie, I was having a conversation with an artist, not Brandon, I believe. I'm so sorry. I was having a conversation with another artist, and what I said was, theater companies are not actually required to put artists in touch with an audience. That's not my job, because frankly, Brandon can go and perform in the backyard, doesn't need a theater institution. But my job is to provide a support system for, in this case, for an artist, and in this case, for the audience, so that they can have the best possible dialogue. But I also have to watch it to make sure that my vision doesn't become a barrier that puts a huge wall between Brandon and his audience. Because if you let an artist do what they want, not what they want, but what they must and what they want, they'll they'll find their own audience. Yeah, I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is process credit cards. On that happy note.